Hey there, this is MrAddOil again, helping you fight your today for your better tomorrow. And in this video, we're going to continue on this video series of why I decided to choose the Block Web Developer track, Online Coding Bootcamp. And we are on argument number 3, which is I chose this coding bootcamp because it's a self-paced program. And then I'm going to be talking about the advantages of it and the disadvantages and ways to overcome the disadvantage, so that this might be the argument that wins you over to attending an online coding bootcamp like Block. Coming up next. Okay, cool. We're going to talk about the advantage of this argument, right? That it's a self-paced program. So one of the advantages is if you're a self-driven individual, then this will be a great fit for you, right? Self-paced, self-driven. It's like a match made in heaven, right? So for me, it really resonated with me, and this is one of the probably the strongest argument in this 7 arguments that I give for why I'm attending an online coding bootcamp is because of this argument that it's designed for self-driven individuals. So for me, or mostly for you, also for me, think about a time in your past, maybe in college or when you're doing some sort of extracurricular activity like playing basketball, dancing, playing music, something like that. And think about moments where you were able to excel and go really far because you were in a program or an environment where you were able to, there was like an environment set up for your success, and then you determine how successful you were. So for me, that type of environment will be my study abroad experience in 2015 when I went to China for this capstone year. So it's kind of like a similar experience as learning how to code. At that time, like, I'm Chinese, but growing up I didn't really speak much Chinese. Like, I grew up with my family members and like relatives speaking Cantonese and Mandarin, but like at home I mostly spoke like Burmese and English. And then at one point I really wanted to learn more about my own culture and really learn and master the Chinese language. So for me, in order to do that, I attended this Chinese flagship program at San Francisco State University. And then I was afforded the opportunity, after working really hard and earning a full ride scholarship, to go to this 1-year capstone program in China. And then when I went there, like, it just made a lot of sense, and I made a lot of improvements. And here's why. So I hope you can follow along with my story and see if it resonates with any of like a similar story in your own life. But even before I went abroad 1 year in China, I was basically doing a similar thing that I'm doing for my coding journey right now, right? So prior to going to China, I went through a mini like language program myself, right? I went to I'm attending like an immigrant Chinese church. So I just attended all the Chinese like fellowships, all the not Sunday schools, but attending church, Chinese church on Sunday, right? Like I would go to the Cantonese, I'll go to the Mandarin service, and just like, even though I don't really know much of what was going on initially when I first started, I just like stuck it out and then persevered. There will be times where I just wanted to cry because I was like, man, this is really hard. And then like, people don't really take you seriously. Like when they're just like, man, this guy's probably gonna bail after a couple of weeks. But in reality, up to now, like I stuck it out. I mean, at that time I stuck it out for like 2-3 years, or 2 years, 1 or 2 years at the time before I went to the capstone program for 1 year in China. And then even now, like I'm still attending like a Chinese fellowship, stuff like that. Great, so that's the setup, right? So even before I attended the year program, language program in China, I simulated kind of like similar environment by attending my local churches like Cantonese and Mandarin group. Then when I actually went to China, I was like, man, I'm super pumped. Like I worked so hard to prepare for this. And then I just gave myself, I mean, I had lots of like SMART goals in place where the first location that I landed, which was in Nanjing University, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to 7 nearby cities. And I knocked that out, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna increase that to 14 cities. And I knocked that out too. And that's just on like the fun, like cultural aspect of learning a new language, not a new language, but learning Chinese. And then when it comes to the academics, I was like, I need to hit my program goals, which was to obtain an OPI score of 3, which is graded between 0 and 5. Like 0 means, you know, you're just beginning. 3 is like a good, happy medium. And then it was really hard even for like native Chinese speakers to hit 5, because that's like, you're able to communicate and express yourself in that language in a high level in different grades of, or different domain and different topics, right? So I was aiming for that 3. Long story short, I mean, there was a lot of things, a lot of goals that I needed to hit, but I was able to hit them all. Like, I was very self-driven. I worked really hard, sacrificed a lot to get into that program. So in short, I was able to hit the OPI, which is the oral proficiency interview score of 3. And then I was able to get the ACFL superior level for reading, writing, and speaking. I passed the HSK 6 tests. I also passed all my classes, both the flagship classes and like business Chinese classes in Nanjing University with like a 4.0 score. I was able to complete my 6 months internship, and a bonus, I was able to find a girlfriend and date her for 6 months during my internship, and she was my project manager, so that was pretty interesting. So high achiever here, very self-driven. So in summary, like within like a 2-year period, I was able to go from like I didn't know much Chinese to like I can hold a job, like an internship, and then also like communicate in like professional Mandarin Chinese. And during that entire time, I was able to blog my experience. Unfortunately, I was kind of stupid and didn't vlog about that experience. That's my biggest regret, but I'm doing a similar thing right now where I'm learning from my mistakes. I'm vlogging and writing about my experience now when it comes to my coding journey. But the whole story that I shared with you is not to boast. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm very proud of it, but I'm hoping that you find bits and pieces where like my experience resonates with your own experience, and then that can qualify yourself as being a highly self-driven, motivated person. And then if you have that characteristic, if you have that trait, then an online coding bootcamp might be a good fit for you. So now we're gonna go on to the disadvantage of attending an online coding bootcamp, and specifically an online self-paced program like Block. So one of the disadvantage would be you are on your own and you have to have your own sense of urgency. Like I mentioned, the advantage is you have to be a self-driven person to succeed and excel in a self-paced program. And the disadvantage is if you don't have that sense of urgency, and you don't have I need to get things done with a less guided environment with less instructions, then a self-paced online coding bootcamp might not be a good fit for you. And to talk more about that, you have to think about it. You know in your head that you need to invest X amount of hours per week. But if you don't have the habits, if you don't have the framework of success from previous experiences, like for me, mine was excelling and really doing well at my capstone Chinese language flagship program, right? I took all of those good habits and like translated over to what I'm doing now. So I'm able to log my hours of how much hours I invest into coding, which is around, at minimum, is 40 hours a week. And I'm trying to hit at least 60 plus hours a week. And because it's a self-paced program, like if you just slack off, like it might take you really long to finish. And that's where Block will make a lot of money off of you, because it's a subscription program, right? So you're paying like a little bit over $1,000 a month. If you slack off, you don't get things done within a reasonable time period. For me, I know I want to get this done within 3 months. So that's why I have this sense of urgency, right? But for people who don't have that like compass inside that urges them to take action, then you might be spending way more than you really need. And that's not a good thing. And in that case, you might as well spend that money and attend an on-site coding bootcamp. So second disadvantage of a self-paced online coding bootcamp, which is it's really hard to do pair programming and collaborated projects with other students because of the asynchronous nature of the coding bootcamp. Hopefully I said that right. So like I said, Block is part of Thinkful, and Thinkful has like a similar, it's a remote program, right? But it's a full engineering immersion program where you do have daily paired programming and daily one-on-one mentorship and collaborated team capstone projects. It sounds really good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's the disadvantage of this Block web developer track online coding bootcamp, which is you're not really afforded that opportunity because you're in a lower price tier. So the company doesn't really want to give you all of that type of love and resource because their flagship product has all that. And that's totally fine. I'll talk about how you can overcome that. But that's one of the disadvantages, right? You don't have pair programming because people are going at different paces. You don't have, the curriculum itself it's not designed for team projects. And you just only have, you just only have that online curriculum for you. So how do you overcome these disadvantages? The way you can leverage this flexibility, the self-paced online program, is do pair programming and do team capstone projects anyways. And the way you will do that is with this Block online coding bootcamp, there's a Slack community or a Slack channel. You just have to prospect and find like-minded students like you to collaborate and work hard together with. That's the only way to kind of harmonize or overcome this disadvantage of not having paired programming and not afforded the opportunity to do a team collaborated capstone project. My advice would be, this is what I'm doing, right? Try to find at least 3 like-minded students like you to do pair programming like once a week. They might be busy with their own schedule, but when you have at least 3 other students who are like you, who will also want to do pair programming, you can switch between these students per week to ensure that you'll be getting some sort of pair programming experience. It is valuable to be able to program and work together with another engineer when working on a certain problem or even projects. So I highly recommend it. As for collaborating on a team capstone project, when you first start an online coding bootcamp, let's start prospecting, start talking to other students in the Slack channel as soon as possible, and try to lock down those collaborated team efforts as soon as possible. Being able to do these collaborated team capstone projects kind of signals employers seeing that you are able to work as a team with other developers. That's why it's so very valuable to do that. It's much harder in a self-paced type of online coding bootcamp, but it's still possible. And from what I've seen, like it's not illegal to do that too. Like I don't think it's even discouraged, but people, like the salesperson that I talked to at Block, they're like, yeah, it is encouraged to do collaborated projects. And you technically can do that by just talking to a couple of students on Slack and just doing it on the side. And then if that doesn't work, there's another option that I'm also taking, right? Which is finding a software engineer friend and asking them to work on a project with you. So they're in that type of relationship, they're your mentor and they're also a contributor to your project. And that's another route that I'm taking to kind of make up for this disadvantage of not having an opportunity in the curriculum to do a collaborated capstone project. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for tuning in. And like I mentioned, there's a blog post about this too. If you are really antsy and really want to go through the self-qualification process, there's 7 arguments listed there, and you can just go through the written word and just, fly through it and see for yourself to see if attending an online coding bootcamp like Block will make sense for you. Again, this is MrAddOil helping you fight your today for your better tomorrow, and I'll see you in the next video.